I never thought the most beautiful day of my son's life would become the darkest moment of mine. Picture this: golden chandeliers dripping with crystal, soft jazz floating through the air like silk, tables dressed in crisp white linen and blush roses, and laughter everywhere. My son Daniel was finally getting married again. Everyone said it was his fresh start, his second chance at happiness after the storm that had nearly destroyed us all. But as I sat at table 8, holding the tiny hand of my 7-year-old grandson Noah, I felt something cold brush against my heart, something that had nothing to do with the air-conditioned ballroom in downtown Chicago. Noah had been unusually quiet all evening. His favorite red toy car, the one he'd carried everywhere since he was 3, moved back and forth across the tablecloth in slow, mechanical strokes. His bow tie was slightly crooked, just like his father used to wear his when he was little. I reached over and gently straightened it, my fingers brushing the soft skin of his neck. For a second his big hazel eyes met mine, and he gave me that half-smile that always melted me. "Grandma Ellie," he whispered, using the nickname only he was allowed to use, "can we go home soon?" I laughed softly. "Sweetheart, the party just started. Your daddy's getting married. Aren't you happy?" He didn't answer. Instead, he pushed the car harder, the tiny wheels leaving faint tracks on the linen. I thought he was just tired. Weddings are long for little boys, so I turned my attention to the room, searching for Daniel among the guests. There he was, tall and handsome in his midnight blue tuxedo, moving from table to table with that easy smile I hadn't seen in years. Next to him, the bride, Vanessa, shimmered in a crystal-beaded gown that caught every light like a diamond. She laughed loudly, tossed her head, raised her champagne glass again and again. She looked perfect. Too perfect, maybe. Something about the way her eyes kept flicking toward our table made the hair on my arms rise, but I told myself I was being silly. Overprotective. Just an old woman who had already lost too much. At our table sat my adopted daughter Hannah, quiet and graceful in a simple ivory dress, her dark hair swept into a soft chignon. She kept leaning over to cut Noah's chicken into tiny pieces and wipe sauce from his chin. Hannah had always been like that, the quiet glue that held us together after the accident. The elderly couple beside us smiled warmly. "How old is the little man now, Eleanor?" the wife asked. 7 last month, I answered, pride swelling in my chest. Time really does fly. I turned back to Noah, ready to offer him a bite of the chocolate cake that had just been placed in front of us. But the moment my hand touched the plate, Noah froze. His small body went rigid. The red car stopped mid-track. Slowly, he reached under the table and grabbed my wrist with surprising strength for such a little boy. "Grandma Ellie," his voice was barely a breath, trembling. "I want to leave right now." My heart skipped. "What's wrong, baby? Are you feeling sick?" He shook his head, eyes wide and shiny with unshed tears. "You didn't look under the table, did you?" The way he said it, so small, so terrified, sent ice straight through my veins. The jazz band kept playing. Glasses kept clinking. But inside my chest, everything went deathly quiet. I forced a calm smile for the people around us, then leaned down, lifting the heavy edge of the white tablecloth just enough to peer into the shadows beneath. At first, I saw only the polished wooden legs of the chairs and Noah's shiny black dress shoes swinging nervously. Then my eyes adjusted. There it was. A small square of paper, folded neatly into quarters, lying on the carpet right beside Noah's chair, so close that his foot must have brushed it when he moved. My stomach twisted. With shaking fingers I reached down and snatched it up, hiding it quickly in my lap. Noah pressed himself against my side, his whole body trembling like a leaf in the wind. I could feel his racing heartbeat through his little suit jacket. Around us the celebration continued, waiters gliding past with silver trays of shrimp cocktails, guests laughing, Daniel raising another toast. No one noticed the grandmother and grandson who had suddenly gone pale. I unfolded the paper under the table, angling it toward the soft glow of the candle. The handwriting was neat, almost elegant, in black ink. Table 8. Add extra shrimp to the child's main course. Make sure it's mixed in well. My blood turned to ice. Noah is deathly allergic to shellfish. One tiny piece can close his throat in minutes. The entire family knows this. We carry 2 EpiPens everywhere. We read every label. We warn every restaurant. And yet someone had written those words on our son's wedding day. Someone had tried to kill my grandson. I folded the paper again, my fingers numb, and slipped it into the hidden pocket of my dress. Noah was crying silently now, fat tears rolling down his cheeks. I pulled him into my arms, rocking him gently the way I had when he was a baby. "Sure, my brave boy. Grandma's here. We're going to fix this." But inside my mind, a storm was raging. Who would do this? Who hated us enough to poison a child at his own father's wedding? Memories crashed over me like waves. I remembered the day Claire, Noah's mother, my first daughter-in-law, died. The phone call, the shattering plate on my kitchen floor, the rain that wouldn't stop at her funeral. Noah, only 4 years old, clutching my black dress and asking, "Where's Mommy? When is she coming back?" Daniel had fallen apart. He threw himself into work at the architecture firm, leaving before sunrise and coming home after Noah was asleep. The house grew quiet, too quiet, until Hannah, my adopted daughter, who had lived with us since she was 16, started coming over every single day. She brought coloring books, baked cookies shaped like race cars, sat on the floor for hours helping Noah build towers that reached the ceiling. She never asked for anything in return. She just loved him like her own. I had watched the way Hannah looked at Daniel sometimes, soft, careful, full of something deeper than sisterly affection. I had seen the way Daniel's eyes lingered on her when he thought no one was watching. But after losing Claire, none of us were ready to speak those feelings out loud. We were all just trying to survive. Then Vanessa entered our lives. She was everything Claire wasn't. Loud, glamorous, always perfectly dressed. Daniel met her at work. Within 3 months, he was smiling again. Within 6, he was talking about marriage. I tried to be happy for him. I really did. But every time Vanessa was near Noah, the boy grew smaller. He stopped talking. He hid behind my legs. Once, I overheard her hiss at him when she thought I wasn't listening. "Stop acting like a baby, or I'll tell your father you're spoiled." I had convinced myself it was just adjustment. New stepmother nerves. But now, holding that folded note in my pocket, I knew I had been wrong. Dangerously wrong. Noah's little fingers dug into my arm. "Grandma, is someone trying to hurt me?" I looked into his terrified eyes and felt a mother bear rage rise inside me that I didn't know I still possessed. "Yes, baby," I whispered, kissing the top of his head. But they picked the wrong grandma to mess with. I stood up slowly, smoothing my silver-gray gown, and took Noah's hand. Hannah looked up, instantly reading the alarm on my face. She rose too, wrapping her arm protectively around Noah's shoulders. "Mom," she asked quietly, "what's going on?" I didn't answer yet. I couldn't. Not until I was sure. Because in that moment, standing in the middle of what was supposed to be the happiest day of my son's life, I made a silent vow. Whoever had written that note, whether it was Vanessa or someone helping her, was about to learn a very hard lesson. You do not come after my family. You do not come after my grandson. And if you do, I will burn your perfect little world to the ground. The jazz band played on. The candles flickered. And somewhere in that glittering ballroom, someone was smiling, thinking their secret was still safe. They had no idea what was coming. The moment I stood up with Noah's hand locked in mine, the entire ballroom seemed to slow down, like the world had decided to give me 1 extra second to decide whether to scream or stay silent. I chose neither. Instead, I leaned close to Hannah and whispered only 3 words: "Keep him safe." She didn't ask questions. She simply nodded once, pulled Noah onto her lap, wrapped both arms around him like a fortress, and began murmuring soft nonsense in his ear, the same lullabies she used when he had nightmares after Claire died. Noah buried his face in her shoulder, small fists clutching the fabric of her dress. I straightened my spine, smoothed the front of my gown as if I were about to give a toast instead of expose a crime, and walked straight toward the head table where Daniel and Vanessa stood side by side, arms linked, accepting congratulations from a long line of smiling relatives. Every step felt heavier than the last. My heels clicked against the polished parquet floor like tiny gunshots. Guests turned to watch me pass, curious at first, then puzzled. A few smiled politely, assuming I was heading to hug my son. They had no idea I was carrying proof of attempted murder in my pocket. When I reached them, Daniel's face lit up.
Mom.
Come here, you have to try the champagne. It's the same vintage Claire and I. He stopped himself mid-sentence, the old grief flashing behind his eyes before he forced the smile back. Anyway, you look beautiful. I didn't smile back. Instead, I opened my palm and placed the folded note directly on the white linen between them, right next to Vanessa's half-empty flute. Read it, I said. My voice was quiet, but it carried. Several people nearby stopped talking. Daniel frowned, picked up the paper, unfolded it. His brows drew together as he scanned the words. Then his entire body went still. Vanessa glanced over his shoulder, casual at first, then her perfectly painted lips parted in what looked like genuine surprise. Or very good acting. What is this? Daniel asked, voice cracking on the last word. He looked at me, then at Noah across the room, then back at the note. Shrimp? Noah can't, Mom. Where did this come from? Under our table, I answered. Right next to his chair. Someone dropped it there on purpose. A small circle had formed around us now. Whispers spread outward like ripples. An aunt gasped. A cousin muttered, "That's insane." Vanessa recovered first. She placed a manicured hand on Daniel's forearm, possessive, reassuring. Sweetheart, this has to be some awful prank. Kids playing around, maybe. Or one of the staff got the orders mixed up. She turned to me, expression soft with concern. Eleanor, I know how protective you are of Noah. We all are. But jumping to murder? At a wedding? Come on. Her voice was velvet. Reasonable. Soothing. Exactly the tone you use when you want everyone to think the hysterical old widow is overreacting. I met her gaze and held it. I'm not jumping to anything, I said. I'm reading what's written in black ink. Someone wanted shrimp, knowing it would kill my grandson. Served to a 7-year-old at table 8. That table is ours. You know that. Daniel's hand tightened around the note until the paper crumpled. He looked at Vanessa. Did you see anyone near our table? Anyone who? Of course not, she cut in smoothly. I've been right here with you the whole time. Posing for photos, greeting guests. You know that. She laughed, a light, tinkling sound meant to defuse tension. Honestly, this is getting dramatic. Let's not ruin the night over a silly misunderstanding. But Daniel wasn't laughing. His eyes had gone distant, the way they did whenever he remembered the hospital, the machines, Claire's hand growing cold in his. He turned to me. Mom, you're sure this was under the table? I pulled it out myself, I said. Noah found it first. He was terrified. Across the room, Noah peeked out from Hannah's embrace, eyes red-rimmed. When he saw his father looking at him, he lifted one small hand in a wave that broke my heart. Daniel's jaw clenched. He looked back at Vanessa. I need to talk to the catering manager. Right now. Vanessa's smile flickered, just for a second. Daniel, the main course is about to be served. People are waiting. We can handle this quietly after. No, his voice was low, dangerous. We handle it now. He strode off toward the kitchen doors. Note still crushed in his fist. Vanessa watched him go, then turned back to me with that same practiced concern. Eleanor, she said softly, stepping closer so only I could hear. I know losing Claire was devastating. For all of you. But you have to let Daniel be happy again. Don't turn his wedding into this. I leaned in until our faces were inches apart. If anything happens to my grandson tonight, I whispered, I will make sure the rest of your life is spent explaining exactly what you knew and when. Her eyes widened fractionally. Then the mask snapped back into place. You're threatening the bride at her own wedding? She murmured, almost amused. Classy. I didn't answer. I simply turned and walked back to Hannah and Noah. When I reached the table, Hannah was already on her feet, coat draped over Noah's shoulders. We're leaving, she said. No question.
No hesitation.
I nodded. I'm coming with you. But before we could move, the band stopped mid-song. A microphone screeched. Daniel's voice boomed through the speakers. Everyone, please hold the main course. There's been an issue with one of the dishes. No one eats until we clear this up. A confused murmur rolled through the room. Forks hovered. Champagne flutes paused halfway to lips. Daniel stood on the small raised platform near the dance floor, face pale under the spotlight. The catering manager, a nervous man in a black suit, stood beside him, wringing his hands. I've just been informed, Daniel continued, that someone instructed the kitchen to add shrimp to a child's plate. A child with a severe, life-threatening allergy. That child is my son.
Gasps.
Shocked faces. Phones came out, some recording, some texting furiously. Vanessa hurried up the steps, heels clicking, smile fixed like armor. Darling, let's not make a scene. Daniel held up a hand.
Not angry. Just done.
Vanessa, he said quietly, but the microphone caught every word. Did you write this note? He held up the crumpled paper. The room went deathly silent. Vanessa laughed again, sharper this time. Are you serious? You're going to stand there in front of our friends and family and accuse me, your wife, of trying to hurt your son? On our wedding day? Daniel didn't flinch. I'm asking if you wrote it. Of course not. She turned to the crowd, arms wide, pleading. This is ridiculous. Someone's clearly trying to sabotage us. Maybe an ex. Maybe a jealous relative.
But it wasn't me.
Then Hannah's voice cut through the hush. Clear, steady, furious. Then explain why Noah's been terrified of you for months. All eyes swung to our table. Hannah stood with Noah in front of her, hands on his shoulders. Explain why he flinches when you come near him. Why he hides his drawings when you walk into the room. Why, 2 weeks ago, he begged me not to let you pick him up from school anymore. Vanessa's face flushed. He's a shy child. That's all. He wasn't shy before you, Hannah said. He used to run to the door when Claire came home. He used to laugh so loud the neighbors complained. Now he barely speaks when you're around. The room was a powder keg. One spark. And then Noah, sweet, terrified Noah, lifted his head. In a voice so small it barely carried, but everyone heard because no one was breathing. Miss Vanessa said if I told anyone she yelled at me, she'd make sure I never saw Grandma again. The spark landed. Vanessa's mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. Daniel stared at his new wife like he was seeing her for the first time. Then he looked at Noah, at his son, shaking in Hannah's arms, and something inside him shattered visibly. He turned back to Vanessa. Get out, he said. She blinked. What?
Get out.
Of my son's life. Out of this room. Out of this marriage. Security appeared at the edges of the crowd. 2 broad-shouldered men in black suits, summoned silently by the catering manager. Vanessa's eyes darted, searching for allies, for escape, for anything. She found nothing. You're throwing me out? She hissed. On our wedding day? Because of some stupid note and a child's story? Because of my son, Daniel answered. Because I finally opened my eyes. The security team stepped forward. Vanessa backed up 1 step. Then another. Then she spun on her heel and stormed toward the exit, crystal beads flashing under the lights like broken glass. The doors swung shut behind her. Silence. Then Noah's voice, tiny, trembling, but clear. Daddy, can we go home now? Daniel crossed the room in long strides, dropped to his knees in front of his son, and pulled him into a crushing hug. I'm so sorry, buddy, he choked out. I'm so sorry. Hannah and I stood on either side of them, hands on their shoulders, forming a small, unbreakable circle while the rest of the ballroom watched in stunned silence. The jazz band started up again, soft, hesitant, like they weren't sure it was allowed. But the fairy tale wedding was over, and something far more real had just begun. The ballroom lights suddenly felt too bright, too harsh, like spotlights on a stage where the play had just gone horribly wrong. Guests stood frozen in clusters, champagne flutes forgotten in their hands. Some were already filming on their phones, others whispering furiously into each other's ears. A woman in a red gown clutched her pearls as if they might protect her from the ugliness that had just spilled across the dance floor. The jazz band had stopped again, this time completely, the saxophonist lowering his instrument like it was suddenly too heavy to hold. Daniel was still on his knees in front of Noah, arms wrapped so tightly around his son that I worried the boy might disappear inside the hug. Noah's small shoulders shook with silent sobs, but for the first time all evening, they weren't sobs of fear. They were the kind that come when someone finally believes you. I knelt beside them, my silver gown pooling on the floor like spilled moonlight. Hannah stayed standing, one hand resting lightly on Daniel's shoulder. Not possessive, just steady. The way she had always been. "Dad, you really believe me?" Noah whispered against Daniel's chest. Daniel pulled back just enough to look into his son's eyes. His own were wet, red-rimmed, shattered. "I should have believed you months ago, buddy.
I'm so sorry.
I was blind." A heavy silence pressed down on the room. Then, like a dam breaking, voices erupted. How could she? Poor little boy. Someone call the police. I always thought she was too perfect. An older uncle, my late husband's brother, Uncle Ray, pushed through the crowd, his face thunderous. "Daniel, son, this isn't just a family matter anymore. That note is evidence of attempted murder. We need the authorities." Daniel nodded slowly, still not letting go of Noah. "You're right. But first, I need to get my family out of here." He stood, lifting Noah into his arms as if the boy weighed nothing. At 7, Noah was already getting tall, but in that moment, he looked tiny again, the same little boy who used to fall asleep on my lap during thunderstorms. Hannah stepped closer to me. "Mom, I'll take the car around back. The valet knows us. We can slip out without the cameras at the front entrance." I squeezed her hand. "You've always been the practical one." She gave me a small, sad smile. Someone had to be. As we moved toward the side exit, Vanessa's younger sister, Sophia, only 19 and trembling in her pale pink bridesmaid dress, suddenly broke away from her family's table and ran after us.
"Wait.
Please." Her voice cracked. Tears streaked her makeup. I didn't know. She told me it was a joke. A silly prank to scare Noah into behaving. She said he was spoiled and needed tough love. I swear I didn't know about the allergy. Daniel stopped. His jaw tightened so hard I heard it click. "You handed the note to the waiter?" Sophia nodded, sobbing. "She gave it to me during photos. Said it was special instructions for the chef." I trusted her. She's my sister." Hannah's eyes flashed with something I rarely saw, pure, cold fury. "Your sister almost killed a child. And you helped." Sophia collapsed into a chair, head in her hands. "I'm so sorry. I'll tell the police everything." I placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Do that. For Noah's sake." We didn't wait for more. The side door opened into a quiet service hallway lined with carts of untouched desserts. The smell of vanilla and chocolate should have been comforting. Instead, it turned my stomach. Outside, the cool Chicago night air hit us like a slap. Hannah's car, the sensible silver SUV she'd bought with her teacher's salary, was already waiting, engine running. Daniel buckled Noah into the booster seat with shaking hands, then climbed into the back beside him. I took the passenger seat. Hannah drove. For the first 10 minutes, no one spoke. The city lights streaked past, neon signs, glowing skyscrapers, the distant sparkle of Lake Michigan. Noah's head rested against Daniel's chest, eyes heavy with exhaustion. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "Mom, how long have you known something was wrong?" I stared out the window at the passing cars. Since the first time she met Noah. He hid behind my legs and wouldn't look at her. I told myself he was shy. Then came the little comments. "He needs discipline. He's too attached to you. Boys his age shouldn't cry." Each one like a paper cut.
Small.
But they added up. Hannah's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "It was worse when you weren't around, Daniel." She'd corner him in the kitchen. Tell him if he didn't call her Mom, she'd make sure you worked late every night. Once she took his toy car, that red one he loves, and said she'd throw it away if he didn't eat the fish stick she made. He hates fish. He threw up after. Daniel made a sound like he'd been punched. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were happy, Hannah said softly. For the first time since Claire, you were smiling again. I didn't want to be the one who took that away. And Noah begged me not to. He said, Daddy needs to be happy, or he'll leave like Mommy did. Tears slipped down Daniel's cheeks. He didn't wipe them away. I reached back and rested my hand on his knee. We all made mistakes, son. We thought love would fix everything. But love without truth is just another kind of blindness. We pulled into the driveway of the old suburban house, the one Claire and Daniel had bought together, the one where Noah still had his mother's drawings taped inside his closet. The porch light was on, casting a warm yellow glow. It felt like coming home after a war. Inside, we settled Noah on the couch with his favorite blanket and the red toy car clutched in his fist. He fell asleep almost instantly, thumb in his mouth like he was four again. Daniel paced the living room. Hannah made tea, chamomile, the way Claire used to. I sat at the kitchen table, the folded note now in a plastic bag on the counter, like evidence from a crime show. Police are on their way, Daniel said, checking his phone. They want statements. Sophia already called them from the venue. Hannah set a steaming mug in front of me. There's more you need to know. She pulled out her phone and opened a hidden folder. Photos.
Dozens of them.
Noah with bruises on his arms. He said he fell at the park, but I saw her grab him too hard. Noah's lunchbox with a note in Vanessa's handwriting. No. More baby snacks. He needs to grow up. A video, shaky, taken from the hallway, of Vanessa yelling at Noah in the playroom. If you ruin this wedding for me, I'll make sure your father sends you to boarding school far away. Daniel watched every single one in silence. When the last video ended, he sank into a chair and buried his face in his hands. I almost married a monster. You didn't know, I said gently. But I should have. Hannah sat beside him. For the first time, she didn't hide the way she looked at him, soft, aching, full of years of unspoken love. Daniel, I've been in love with you since I was 17. Since the day you carried me on your back after I sprained my ankle at the family picnic. But I never said anything because Claire was perfect. Then she was gone and you were broken, and no one needed a father more than I needed to confess. I stayed silent to protect what was left of this family. But tonight, I can't stay silent anymore. Daniel lifted his head. Their eyes met, years of almosts and what-ifs hanging between them. I see you now, he whispered. I see everything I almost lost. The doorbell rang, sharp, official. Two detectives stood on the porch, badges glinting. Behind them, a patrol car waited with lights off. We spent the next 2 hours giving statements. The note was logged. Sophia's confession was recorded over the phone. Security footage from the ballroom was requested. Vanessa had already been detained at the hotel trying to leave with her luggage and a one-way ticket to Miami. When the detectives finally left, promising updates by morning, the house felt strangely peaceful. Noah woke briefly, wandered into the kitchen rubbing his eyes, and climbed straight into Hannah's lap without a word. She stroked his hair and hummed the lullaby Claire used to sing. Daniel watched them, something tender and certain settling over his face. Mom, he said quietly, tomorrow I'm filing for an annulment. And I think it's time this family stopped pretending we're just friends and siblings. I smiled through fresh tears. It's about time. But as I climbed the stairs to my old bedroom, the one I kept here for nights like this, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. A text from Vanessa. You think you've won, old woman? This is only the beginning. I know things about your precious Hannah that would destroy everything. Sleep tight. I stared at the screen until it went black. The mask was gone. But the war wasn't over. The text from Vanessa arrived at 2:17 a.m. I sat bolt upright in the old four-poster bed that had once been Claire's and Daniel's, phone screen glowing like a warning in the dark. The words burned. You think you've won, old woman? This is only the beginning. I know things about your precious Hannah that would destroy everything. Sleep tight. My thumb hovered over the delete button, but I didn't press it. Instead, I forwarded the message to Daniel with 3 words. She's not done. By sunrise, the house smelled of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls, Hannah's quiet way of saying the world hadn't ended. Noah padded downstairs in dinosaur pajamas, red toy cars still clutched in one hand, and climbed straight onto Hannah's lap at the kitchen table. She didn't flinch when he smeared chocolate on her sleeve. She just kissed the top of his head and whispered, "Best breakfast buddy ever." Daniel walked in, hair still damp from the shower, eyes shadowed. He read the forwarded text, jaw tightening. Detective Ramirez called. They picked her up at the airport last night. She's in custody. Preliminary charges: attempted harm to a minor, conspiracy, evidence tampering. Bail hearing is tomorrow morning. I poured him coffee, hands steadier than I felt. And the threat. She denies sending it. Claims her phone was stolen. But they're tracing the number. He looked at Hannah, really looked at her, the way a man does when he's finally seeing the woman who's been standing in the light all along. Whatever she thinks she knows about you, we face it together. Hannah's cheeks flushed, but she met his gaze. There's nothing to hide. Not anymore. Noah looked up, innocent and devastating. Is Miss Vanessa going to jail? Daniel knelt beside him. She might, buddy. But that's for grown-ups to handle. Your job is to be 7 and play with your car and let Aunt Hannah make you pancakes shaped like racetracks. Okay. Noah nodded solemnly. Okay. But can Aunt Hannah stay forever? The room went still in the best way. Hannah's eyes shimmered. Daniel reached across the table and covered her hand with his. She already has, he said quietly. The next 48 hours blurred into a storm of police stations, lawyers, and whispered phone calls. Detective Ramirez, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and kinder hands, met us at the precinct. She laid out photos of the security footage. Vanessa slipping the folded note to Sophia during the photo line, Sophia handing it to the waiter dropping it under the table when a tray tipped. Open and shut on the note, Ramirez said. But she's lawyered up. Claims it was a prank that went wrong. Claims Hannah framed her out of jealousy. Hannah laughed once, short, bitter. Jealousy? I've loved this family since I was a scared 16-year-old foster kid they took in. I never asked for more than a seat at the table. Ramirez nodded. We know. We pulled your records.
Clean.
Hers, not so much. 2 prior restraining orders from an ex in college. 1 dropped assault charge. She's good at playing the victim. That afternoon we sat in the courthouse hallway waiting for the bail hearing. Vanessa arrived in a crisp white pantsuit, hair perfect, looking every inch the wronged bride. Her new lawyer, slick, expensive, whispered furiously in her ear. When she saw us, her eyes narrowed on Hannah. You, she hissed under her breath as she passed. You think you can steal my life and my man? I'll burn yours first. Daniel stepped between them. Stay away from my family. The judge denied bail. Vanessa was remanded until trial. As they led her away, she turned one last time and smiled, cold, certain. That smile haunted me all the way home. The real storm hit 3 days later. A gossip website, the kind that feeds on broken weddings, posted an exclusive story. Bride kicked out after jealous stepsister plants fake poison note. Photos of Hannah and Daniel from years ago. Innocent family pictures twisted to look romantic. An anonymous source claimed Hannah had been obsessed with Daniel since Claire's death and had manipulated the child to destroy the marriage. Comments exploded. Hate poured in. That poor bride. The grandmother is clearly senile. CPS should check on that boy. Noah came home from school crying because a classmate said his aunt was a homewrecker. Daniel slammed his laptop shut so hard the screen cracked. I'm calling the site.
I'm sworn.
Hannah stopped him with a gentle hand on his chest.
No.
We tell the truth. All of it. That night we sat Noah down with hot cocoa and told him everything, age-appropriate but honest. How his mommy Claire had been an angel who loved him more than the stars. How Daddy had been sad for a long time. How Hannah had loved him like a mother even when she wasn't allowed to say it out loud. How Vanessa had been scared of losing Daniel and made terrible choices. Noah listened with big eyes. When we finished, he crawled into Hannah's lap and said, "I want you to be my mommy for real. Not pretend." Hannah cried. Daniel cried. I cried harder than both of them. The next morning, Daniel drove to the courthouse and filed papers, not just for annulment, but for full custody protection and a restraining order. He also filed a civil suit against Vanessa for emotional distress and attempted harm. But Vanessa wasn't finished. That evening, while Hannah was helping Noah with homework at the kitchen table, her phone rang, an unknown number. She answered on speaker. A man's voice, professional, cold. "Ms. Hannah Reed? This is Attorney Marcus Klein. I represent Vanessa Caldwell. We have evidence that you forged the note yourself to sabotage the wedding. We also have witness statements that you were romantically involved with Daniel Williams while his first wife was still alive. Perjury, fraud, alienation of affection. The charges are stacking up. Drop the criminal complaint against my client, or we go public with everything." Hannah's face went white. Daniel took the phone. "Tell your client she has until morning to retract that lie, or I'll release every text she ever sent me begging me to put Noah in boarding school, so she wouldn't have to deal with his issues." He hung up. Then he turned to Hannah, voice soft. "Is there anything at all she could twist?" Hannah took a deep breath. "When Claire was in the hospital the last week, I stayed every night. Daniel was exhausted, working and sitting with her. One night he fell asleep in the chair, and I held his hand, just for a minute, to comfort him. That's all. Someone must have seen. But nothing happened. Nothing ever happened until now." I reached for her hand. "Then that's what we tell the world. Love that waited is still love. And it's honest." The following week was war in the court of public opinion. We held a small press conference outside our house. Just local news. No cameras in Noah's face. Daniel stood tall, Hannah beside him, me on the other side, Noah safely inside with Uncle Ray. "We lost my wife Claire 4 years ago," Daniel said, voice steady. "My son lost his mother." Hannah stepped in, as family long before anyone called her anything else. Vanessa chose fear and control. She chose to risk my son's life rather than share his love. That is not a marriage. That is a crime. We will not be silenced. The story flipped overnight. Hashtags trended. Hashtag Justice for Noah, hashtag Reel of Weights. Donations poured into a children's allergy awareness fund Hannah quietly started. Vanessa's lawyer went silent. But the night before the preliminary hearing, another text came, this time to Hannah's phone. "You took everything, so I'll take what you love most." Attached was a photo, Noah's red toy car sitting on the hood of Hannah's car in the school parking lot. Someone had scratched the word liar into the paint. Hannah's hands shook as she showed us. Daniel pulled her close. "He's not going to school tomorrow. None of us are leaving this house until she's behind bars for good." I looked at the three of them, my son, my almost daughter-in-law, my grandson, and felt the old fighter rise in my chest. "No," I said. "We don't hide. We end this." The next morning we walked into the courthouse together, heads high. Noah held Hannah's hand on one side and Daniel's on the other. I walked behind them like the guardian I had always been. Vanessa sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, makeup gone, hair pulled back. She looked small. For the first time, she looked afraid. When the judge asked if she had anything to say before ruling on the charges, she stood. And for once, she told the truth. "I was scared," she whispered. Scared he'd always loved the ghost of his first wife more. Scared the boy would never accept me. I thought if something happened, just a scare, he'd need me. I never meant for it to be real.
I'm sorry.
The courtroom was silent. The judge denied every motion her lawyer filed. Trial date set. Bail denied again. As they led her away, Vanessa looked back at us one last time. No smile this time. Just exhaustion.
Defeat.
Outside on the courthouse steps, the sun was shining, the kind of crisp Chicago autumn light that makes everything feel possible. Daniel turned to Hannah, dropped to one knee right there on the marble, and pulled a simple diamond ring from his pocket, the one Claire had helped him pick out years ago for a renewal vow they never got to have. I waited too long, he said. Marry me. Not because you saved us. Because you are us. Hannah laughed through tears.
Yes.
1,000 times yes. Noah cheered and threw his red toy car in the air. I stood there watching my family, broken, mended, stronger, and felt Claire's presence like a warm hand on my shoulder. But deep down I knew one truth. Vanessa had lost the battle. The war for our peace was only just beginning. The morning of the trial dawned cold and bright, the kind of Chicago November day that makes the city look like it's been polished by winter itself. I stood at the bedroom window of our old house, watching frost sparkle on the bare maple tree where Noah used to hang his swing. My hands trembled as I fastened the pearl earrings Claire had given me on my 70th birthday. Today wasn't just a court date. Today was Judgment Day for the woman who had tried to steal my grandson's life and nearly stolen my son's future. Downstairs, the kitchen smelled of pancakes and fresh coffee. Noah sat on a stool, legs swinging, drawing rockets on his placemat while Hannah flipped golden circles on the griddle. Daniel leaned against the counter in a dark suit, watching them with the quiet awe of a man who had almost lost everything twice. Grandma Ellie, look. Noah held up his drawing, a bright red car flying through stars. It's us. Going to a new planet where no one is ever mean again. I crossed the room and kissed the top of his head. That's the only planet I want to live on, sweetheart. Hannah turned, her simple navy dress hugging her gently, hair loose the way Daniel had always loved. Their eyes met and held, no more hiding, no more almost. The diamond on her finger caught the morning light and threw tiny rainbows across the walls. Ready?
Daniel asked me.
I nodded. I've been ready since the moment I lifted that tablecloth. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters, but we walked through them like a single unit. Daniel carrying Noah on his shoulders, Hannah at his side, me bringing up the rear with the quiet strength of every grandmother who has ever had to become a lioness. Cameras flashed. Questions flew. We said nothing. Our truth would speak inside the courtroom. Vanessa sat at the defense table looking smaller than I remembered. Orange jumpsuit, no makeup, hair in a tight braid. Her lawyer shuffled papers nervously. When we entered, she looked up. For a split second her eyes met mine, and I saw it. Not hatred anymore, but exhaustion. The kind that comes when every lie has finally run out of road. The judge called the room to order. The prosecutor laid out the evidence one final time. The note, the security footage, Sophia's tearful testimony, the texts, the scratched car, the threats. Noah's medical records showing how close he had come to anaphylaxis that night. My voice on the stand was steady as I described lifting the tablecloth, the terror in my grandson's eyes, the moment I knew someone had tried to murder a child at his father's wedding. When it was Vanessa's turn, the judge asked if she wished to speak. She stood slowly. Her hands shook as she gripped the edge of the table. I was terrified, she said, voice cracking. Terrified of being second best to a ghost. Terrified that Noah would never love me, that Daniel would always compare me to Claire. I thought if I scared him just a little, he'd need me. I never meant for the shrimp to actually reach him. I told myself it would be caught in time. I was wrong. I was selfish. I was cruel. And I am so sorry. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the heating vents humming. She turned to our row. Noah, I'm sorry I made you afraid. Daniel, I'm sorry I tried to erase the family you already had. Eleanor, I'm sorry I ever thought I could replace the grandmother who would walk through fire for that little boy. Tears ran down her face. Real ones this time. The judge recessed for 30 minutes. When he returned, his sentence was clear and final. Miss Caldwell, you have shown a pattern of manipulation and endangerment that cannot be ignored. I sentence you to 7 years in state prison, with possibility of parole after 4, contingent on mandatory therapy and no contact with the Williams family. This court will also issue a permanent restraining order. The gavel fell like a door closing on a nightmare. Vanessa didn't fight it. She simply nodded, as if some part of her had been waiting for this moment to finally breathe. Outside on the steps, the sun felt warmer. Reporters surged forward, but Daniel raised a hand. Today isn't about revenge, he said clearly. It's about protection. It's about choosing love that was always there. My son is safe. My family is healing. And that is the only victory that matters. We walked away together, cameras flashing behind us, but our backs were straight and our hands were linked. That evening we gathered in the backyard under strings of fairy lights Hannah had hung earlier. The same yard where Claire once pushed Noah on the swing. The same yard where Hannah had taught him to fly kites. Uncle Ray grilled burgers. Neighbors who had become family brought casseroles and flowers. Noah ran in circles with his red toy car, laughing so hard he tripped over his own feet and came up giggling. At sunset, Daniel took Hannah's hand and led her to the center of the yard. He dropped to one knee again, not for show this time, but for the small circle of people who mattered most. I already asked you once in front of the whole world, he said, voice thick. Now I'm asking in front of the only world that matters. Hannah Reed, you have loved my son like your own since the day you met him. You have loved me through my darkest grief. Will you marry me, not in a ballroom with crystal and lies, but right here, next spring, with pancakes and toy cars and the family we already are? Hannah laughed through happy tears.
Yes.
1,000 quiet, real, forever yes. Noah cheered and tackled them both. I stood back, heart so full it hurt, watching the three of them become the four of us, the family that had been waiting all along. The wedding the following April was everything the first one wasn't.
No ballroom. No crystal.
Just our backyard transformed into a garden of white roses and blue balloons, Noah's favorite color. I walked Hannah down the aisle of grass, her simple lace dress brushing the spring flowers. Daniel waited under a wooden arch Noah had helped paint. The officiant was our old pastor who had buried Claire. When the vows came, Daniel spoke first. I promise to see you. Not the version I wish you were, but the woman who has been here all along. I promise to protect our son with the same fire his grandmother showed that night. And I promise that every day will be built on truth, not fear. Hannah's voice trembled only once. I promise to love the boy who calls me mom and the man who finally let himself be loved again. I promise to keep the red toy car running and the pancakes coming. And I promise that no shadow will ever touch this family while I still draw breath. Noah, ring bearer and best man in a tiny tux, stepped forward and placed the rings in their hands. Then he surprised everyone by pulling a folded piece of paper from his pocket, a drawing of 4 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. This is us, he announced proudly. Forever. The whole yard cheered. Later, as the sun dipped low and the first stars appeared, I sat on the porch swing with a cup of tea. Daniel came and sat beside me, Noah asleep in his lap, head on his father's shoulder. Mom, he said quietly, thank you for lifting that tablecloth. Thank you for seeing what I couldn't. I rested my head against his. That's what grandmas do, sweetheart. We see the monsters under the table, so our babies never have to. Hannah joined us, slipping under Daniel's other arm. The three of them, soon to be 4 in name as well, fit perfectly. That night, after the last guest left and the fairy lights still twinkled, I walked to the backyard one more time. I stood where Claire's swing used to hang and looked up at the sky. I kept them safe, I whispered to the stars. Just like I promised you. A soft breeze brushed my cheek, warm and gentle, carrying the faint scent of her favorite vanilla perfume. I smiled. The storm was over. The light had won. And somewhere in a quiet suburban house in Chicago, a 7-year-old boy slept with his red toy car on the pillow, dreaming of rockets and pancakes and a mommy who had always been there. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the hand that reaches under the table. Sometimes it's the voice that says, I believe you. Sometimes it's the courage to choose love that waited, love that stayed, love that fought. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's a grandmother who refuses to look away. If you enjoyed the story, like, subscribe, comment, share, and don't forget to watch my full video. White heavy check mark.